Hello, hello. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is David Johnson, and you have joined another episode of Supply Chain Information Flow. On behalf of the ISM New Jersey board, myself, Kathy, I'd like to welcome you and our guest today, Miss Amanda Prochaska. I focused so much on trying to say the last name, I almost said her first name wrong. Welcome, Amanda.
Thank you, David.
I talk to a lot of people, not just in this role, but just because I am a chatty Cathy and I like talking to people. So whether it's who I'm talking to at line at the supermarket or who I'm talking to in a business situation, but I've never spoken to a chief wonder officer. So I'd like to say thank you for giving me a first.
You're welcome.
What is the chief wonder officer?
Okay, so there's a story behind this, of course, and you'll probably hear a little bit more stories from me today. But so when I started Wonder Services, part of the whole premise was to be curious about doing stuff differently. And that's how I spent 16 years in procurement before I started my company. And it really was that whole premise around, hey, we're at a point in procurement where we can really be curious about doing things differently. And I was always wondering what that would look like. So when we came up with the name Wonder Services, and I was like, well, I'm not a CEO. Like I am the CEO of the company, right? I founded it, but that's not me. That's not who I am. I am always curious about doing things differently. And so Chief Wonder Officer was just the perfect fit.
That's very appropriate. Yeah. And I love the concept of procurement as a function being curious. Like I often find myself thinking strategically as opposed to tactically, which is what a lot of us in procurement are suddenly being asked to do. We're being asked to do more with less. We're being asked especially in technology, to be leaders and heavy participants in things like digital transformation and cost optimization activities. I know when I was doing my research into Wonder Services and Amanda, that during your time, you were kind of well known for procurement transformations. Can you tell us just a little bit more of your background when you were doing procurement? Like what gravitated you towards transformation and optimization of procurement functions?
Okay, so I'll start out. My first job out of school was the project that I was assigned to was moving people away from on-site travel agents. Okay, so I'm dating myself a little bit, David, but on-site travel agents.
Nobody has to know.
To an online booking tool. And that I was a buyer at the time. That was my official role. But to be able to get the cost savings that we were looking to achieve, that was the project that I was put on, brand new out of school. 4 months into my role, I was presenting the plan to the CEO of the company and all of his executives. And not being naive, being young maybe, but knowing how important it was for executive support, I told all of them around the room if this initiative was going to be successful, they needed to use the new online booking tool. Okay. And I looked straight at the CEO and the CFO and I said, that includes you and your admins. And it was very clear. They didn't kick me out of the room, thank heavens. But that really started my whole career around focusing on projects that were really transformative for their time. So I sat in the role of a procurement professional. I did category sourcing. I did some HR stuff, IT stuff early on, but then I started getting involved in SAP deployments. And then I started getting, I know, 3 of them, and I'm still here to say, to say something about it. And then I started getting into, can we refine our processes? Can we update our policies? Then I was leading Center of Excellences to look at how we're operating. Should we be outsourcing? Should we be insourcing? Mergers and acquisitions then came onto my plate. So it just naturally kind of evolved into Amanda is there to help us with successful transformation projects. And I ended up coming into roles like the COE roles where that's really my primary focus, was to make sure that the day-to-day operations and the future state of procurement was well secured for our people, the process, the technology, our data and metrics, and for our stakeholders.
Wow, that's a journey. That's a journey. But you're smiling, so that's a good part of it. A lot of you watching would have seen me shudder a little bit and make a face when Amanda mentioned an SAP implementation. Large scale implementations. I'll date myself now. My first large scale implementation happened at a large educational institution in New York City, and it was for PeopleSoft. So,
oh,
yeah.
Yes. Oh, yeah.
So a long time ago. I started right out of kindergarten, just like you. And so I guess the question is, like, what makes a technology adoption, a technology implementation so hard for us in procurement?
So it's actually really interesting. So the whole premise around why I started Wonder Services is because I was having a lot of success in corporate doing these transformations. And a lot of it had to do with making sure at the end of the day that the user experience and adoption was there. Okay. But then I was looking around to procurement and I kept on hearing story after story after story of this implementation didn't go so well, or that we bought this module for, I don't know, sourcing or P2P, but nobody is using it. So I was like, you know what? Now is the time to go out, because we're ready for this within procurement to truly be successful in these transformations. So that's why I started Wonder Services. But why is it so difficult? I actually just read a recent study by Everest Group, and they said 66% of procurement transformations fail. And that was because of lack of adoption. Okay. Now, lack of adoption can be from many, many different things. It could be really poor process design. It could be from a bad user experience within the tool. It could be that nobody knew the importance of using it. It could be various different things. But when I think about change management, it encompasses all of that, because you can invest in a brilliant tool. And there are a lot of them out there, like over 400 procure tech tools out in the market right now.
Wow.
I know. But if you don't use them, it's just a fancy paperweight at the end of the day. So to me, it's procurement is well positioned to drive this change, but they need to focus on adoption and change management to be able to get their stakeholders to buy in, because typically we're asking for a stakeholder group to change their behavior, or the suppliers to change their behavior, accounts payable to change their behavior. So it's, most of these implementations don't just impact procurement.
No, they definitely don't. There are all those peripheral technologies and those peripheral functions that like live with procurement or kind of touch procurement. Those are ones that I've seen have challenges in the past. So you spoke about your first experience, right, with the online travel tool. You had buy-in from leadership, right? So we've now we'll move this back to a large scale implementation, right? We've got our senior leaders who said, yes, we're gonna change to this new procurement tech, and you guys are all gonna use it. And there's that one lady in accounts payable that's been there for 15 years who's like, yeah, I don't like it. I've always done it this way, so we're not gonna do it. Do you have, as an outside party, do you have any tips or tricks on getting that buy-in from those kind of holdovers or those old school people who are just like, this is the way it's always been done, this is the best way to do it? How do you convince those people to do the right thing? Right thing.
Yeah. I mean, so there will be in any deployment those people. Okay. And so there's a couple of things that we do. First of all, you want to identify those people early. Because they can be outwardly, I guess, not in support of the program. They could be passively resisting the program. So, but the earlier you can identify who those people might be, then what we do as part of our engagement plan is we call them convert champions to make it a positive thing. And our whole focus becomes, how do we assign people that that person trusts? So it's not me, it's not a leader, it's someone that that person already trusts and is influenced by. We will assign an owner to that person, and then that owner has the conversations with the individual about the benefits. They listen to the feedback, we answer questions. It's a very one-on-one individual approach to getting that person on board. Now, I am not going to guarantee that we're going to create all of those people into convert champions, but if we do, they are the largest supporters, because now it's like, oh, everyone knew Jane in AP was not going to support this, and all of a sudden she's supporting it. People notice that, and then they follow suit, right? Because Jane never accepts anything, any change. So we do that very individual approach to try to get them there. But at the end of the day, sometimes, and I notice this in a lot of the bigger transformations, sometimes people opt to leave or to make a different decision with their career because of the change. So we also make leaders very aware of that possibility, that with this targeted list, we also know that they are at risk for potentially leaving their positions. So we want to focus on kind of both angles, getting them there, but then also understanding that, hey, this person might be at risk, so we need to have succession plans in place. We need to think about if they do leave, what type of impact does that have?
Excellent, excellent. I love that buddy system idea. I think that's fantastic. Having someone who they trust to guide them through the benefits of this implementation. So I'm going to take a step back, because I went to a negative place. I'm going through a horrible software asset management issue in my professional life, so I'm a little bit dark today. But
it's okay.
let's go back to, let's start with success, right? What does a successful transformation look like? Like, what does it take to have a successful transformation?
Okay, well, so let me talk about what it looks like, and I'll talk about what it takes. So, because it's two different things, but at the end of the day, what it looks like, first of all, every good transformation has what I call success metrics. Okay, so these are the metrics that you set out at the very beginning of the project to say, at the end of the day, these are the metrics we want to hit as an outcome of this program. Okay, so if any program that I'm on has those metrics, because I make sure that they're there, but success looks like hitting those metrics first and foremost. And that could be a combination of the ROI that you were expecting or those success metrics. Okay. The second aspect of it is that people are actually using the tool. And it's not because they're forced to use the tool, because we never want to get into what I call a compliance culture, where it's like, you shall do this, if not, like, you don't want that. So you have people willingly adapting the change. Okay. And that looks like feedback coming back in, like, wow, this is easier than I was expecting. I was well informed and well trained. I know exactly where to go for questions and support. And I think this tool is making my life easier. That's what, on the end user standpoint, that's the feedback that we typically get. So it's kind of twofold. You have your business side metrics and hitting what you wanted in the program, but then you also have that user experience side through that feedback that they were well informed and that they love using the new system and process, and that they know where to go to get answers to their questions.
Does that happen to you a lot, where you get people going, I love using my new procurement system?
I just did. I did a whole video. I kid you not, David. We at a client, we went through the whole thing. The client was very focused on change management, which was amazing. And after our first go live, because it's a waved rollout approach, that client allowed us to go and interview users to get their feedback, to understand, and we videotaped it, and it was all extremely positive. And so we put together a video compilation and sent it back off to the client, and now they're using that with their executive team and others to help prepare for the next waves of implementations.
So you use some really, I would say, IT specific lingo there, right? Wave rollout and change management process. Just can you give a really quick explanation to the procurement folks here who may or may not understand what you mean by that? Just a quick explanation.
Okay, yeah. So wave rollout means I'm not implementing everything all at once, right? So typically, like at this client, they were taking groups of locations live over, I think it's about 12 months. So the first wave was the first group, and it was a smaller group of locations. And then the second wave was another group, et cetera. So you have time to kind of prepare in between and learn as you go. And I highly recommend that wave rollout if anyone's considering a digital transformation. It is a little bit more of an investment of time and resources, but it ensures that people are coming along on the change. So I do recommend typically a waved rollout approach for their implementation. What was the other thing that I used? The other lingo? I don't even remember.
Like a change management. You said something about change management. I forget the exact.
Yeah. So a little bit about a change management approach, and this is what I do day in and day out. So a robust change management strategy includes what I consider 3 pillars of activities. And 2 of them are pretty common. The third one maybe is not. So you have communications, which communications, it can include, and it's not limited to emails, right? So, but it does include emails. We do videos, we do infographics, we do one-on-one meetings, presentations, and we do a lot of listening, because communication is, as you and I know, and if you're in a relationship, you know that it has to be 2-way, right? You have to be listening to the other person along the way. So we do a lot in the communication space to ensure that people are well aware of the benefits. Why are we doing this? What it means to them, the timing, blackout dates, like we go through this whole process. Then we have the training piece of it. And training can include live training. It could be online training, it could be job aids. It could be, it always needs to include post go live support, which people forget. And it's not just hypercare. When you can train people all you want before the system goes live, but until people are using the system, that's when the real training begins, because people will come with real life questions, real life examples of what is going on or not going on. So that's training. And then the third area is engagement. Okay. And engagement is what I was just talking about with that one-on-one kind of buddy system. We look at all of the influencers across the organization. The Converts Champions is one of those types of influencers. We have actually 5 different definitions of influencers within an organization. And then we create a buddy system for each of those. So in a typical deployment, we have about 4 rounds of different engagements, official engagements with those buddies, to help those influencers come along and help them spread the good word of the change to their organization's counterparts, et cetera. So that 3-legged stool is what we use to build out our change management approach.
So what happens, like you're as part of this, you're building out a digital transformation, and you're like, okay, we're gonna change these business processes, and in order for them to fit in with the new technology that we're bringing in, what are kind of some of the activities that you do to build out that business process map to make that so that it fits into the new technology?
Yeah, so typically when I get involved, there's often a different party that's doing the business process mapping, right? So, but we're in those sessions to listen to the reactions from the room and to hear when someone's like, oh, that is just so different from today, or oh my gosh, I can't wait for this to happen. You get all kinds of reactions in the room. And so we listen to all of that to build that into our change plan. Because if people are in the room that are part of that design are reacting that way, more likely than not, other people in the organization are going to react similarly. So we capture all of those as change impacts, and we assess those to understand, is this a high, medium, low impact? And what's the core message that we want to deploy out to the organization about this change? And then we use that change impact assessment and build that into our engagements, into our communications, and into training as a core part of our talking points. So that's what we typically do. We also, and this just came up today, David, because I'm actually sitting at a client's office right now doing this. So it's just in a session this morning, and they're talking about the business process flow. And I kept on asking questions about the user experience. Because if you have a piss poor design, if I can use that language on here, if you have a really bad design, the change management is not going to go over very well, right? The user experience just isn't there. So we had a situation where a user potentially was going to have to go into one system to do goods receipts and then another system to do goods receipts, and they're going to have to know which one to go into at all times. It's just a really tricky scenario to make sure that people understand what that looks like and that they know when to go into each of the systems. Not a very good user experience. So I was asking all kinds of questions about that, because change impacts is one thing, but user experience needs to be included in that too.
Do you find that you are generally talking to higher level individuals that aren't aware of exactly the user experience on the ground a lot?
A combination. I think what the real problem is we get into these design sessions, right? When we're looking at our business process design and the system design, and there's just like, if you take a full P2P deployment, like a Coupa or Reba or whatever, there's a lot to consider.
Yeah.
Right. There's just a lot. So you're going to be talking one day, you're going to be talking about, hey, this is how we do requisitions. And then you're making decisions over there. And then the next workshop is, this is how we do goods receipts. But unless somebody is marrying the two to say, okay, does this really make sense from a user standpoint? It might work in the system and it might work as a business process, but it's a really poor user design and experience, then it's not going to go over very well.
Oh, I agree 100%. I think you
Yeah.
start with the user experience, and then you make sure that it's matching with the functionality that's inherent in the systems.
Yeah, and more people are going that way, thank heavens.
So when you're in the middle, like doing any type of digital transformation is disruptive to the business, right?
Yes.
It's disruptive sometimes, if it's ERP or if it's just in the procurement space, it changes the way that it stops things from working the right way, the way they're supposed to work.
The way that you're used to, maybe.
Exactly.
Okay.
Your system, your Wonder system, how do you head off the pain points of that disruption?
Okay, so there will, I'm taking it because there will always be things that go wrong at Go Live. Okay. Yeah. And I tell people that all the time. So there's a reality of these implementations. They're super complex. They're not going to always go flawlessly at Go Live. You want it to be as flawless as possible, but you should never be guaranteeing to anyone that it's going to be flawless at Go Live. Okay. So what we do to help kind of head off some of that is we actually go through a training with the leadership of the project and anyone else that is going to be sharing the change management messages. And we take them through our ALICE methodology. And ALICE stands for lead with authenticity, lead the conversation, inspire others, create content and communications, and then engage purposely. Okay, so it's an acronym that we use to ground leaders in what it takes to lead a change, because not every leader is good at that. Okay. Some leaders are better at just running day-to-day operations. The first one, lead authenticity, that first one, that A, is tricky for a lot of leaders, because if you're a leader that just got funding to do a multi-million-dollar P2P implementation, they want to go out. First thing that they want to do is go out and say, this is going to solve world hunger. You will have no problems. Everything is going to be rosy, and it's going to fix everything that you're struggling with today. And while we want to try to get a lot of that accomplished, we also want to be authentic in our communication to talk about what it's going to take to get there, and what it's actually going to solve, and what it's not going to solve. Because the most transparency that we can provide, then someone like you that are like, you're changing everything in my life, right? Then you're a little bit more grounded in the change, because you can expect, okay, this is what's going to change. This is what's not going to change. And these are the struggles I'm going to continue to have, and these are where it's going to actually get better. So we train the organizations to be really authentic and transparent in those communications. Because if not, really, David, if you go out and say that Coupa is going to solve world hunger, which I hope Coupa hears this. Coupa's going to solve world hunger, and it's going to solve all of the business problems. You're going to get two camps of people almost immediately. If a leader goes out and says something like that, the one camp is going to be like, I don't believe you. We've gone through this before. It hasn't happened, and I'm not going to listen to anything else you're going to say. Right? You're going to have that camp. The other camp is they're going to be all in. They're going to be like, yes, let's do this. I'm ready for this change. And then once the system goes live, they're going to be just super disappointed. Right? You don't want that. So that's how we start to head it off, is to do that ALICE training up front with the leadership team, so they know what to do and what not to do.
I had that exact experience. I didn't have the ALICE training though. I had a boss, we went through a transformation. We went from one system to another. And he was like, David, I need you to just write an email for me that I'll send out. And my email was essentially, one, it's going to suck at first, but then it'll get better and it'll give you everything that you want. He refused to send it. He took pieces of it and he sent out a revised version of it, which was essentially all of the good things that we expect to come from this. And he left out the fact that it's not going to be exactly what you want at first. We're going to be working on it.
Yeah.
He didn't last very long after that. Because once it went live, everybody was like, this stinks. What's wrong with this? Blah, blah, blah.
Uh-huh.
And he should have listened.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's way too common. We actually, as part of our strategy, when we talk about our communications, one of the things that we do is we have 3 levels of communication: awareness, engagement, and support. And support is like when you get close to go live, to tell people about, where to get their questions answered, when training is going to occur, blackout dates and stuff like that. But part of that, we create a video typically, and that video is their peers, so end users' peers, that are interviewed about what to expect at go live. So we put together a whole video to share that it's not going to be easy. Nothing good is actually easy, if you think about it in life. Why should digital transformation be any different? I have no idea. So we share the real deal of what to expect during go live, and people really appreciate it at the end of the day.
I think that's a great point. If you're building a video, if I'm looking at a video, I don't want to see my CPO who's never going to use the system. I want to see the people who I know, Mary, who sits down the hall from me, who does this every day. Yeah, I think that's right. That's a great idea. It's such common sense. Why did I never think of that before? Sheesh. That could have made my life a lot easier a couple of years ago. Trust me on that one. Wow. I've loved everything that you've said so far. I love the idea of the buddy system. That is totally going into my That's going to be stolen. It's going into my back pocket. I'm going to use that for a bunch
Good.
of different rollouts. You may have helped me a little bit in my negative software asset management phase right now. I have an idea on that one.
Okay.
Okay, we have to put that acronym in the chat. So we have to put your Alice
Okay.
acronym in the chat. Can you say that again? It's
Okay. It is authenticity, lead the conversation, inspire others, create content and communications, and engage purposely.
fully or purposely? Purposely.
Purposely. Yeah.
Love it. Love it. That's
Now
wonderful.
Now you can see how it all is coming together. You have Alice and you have Wonder Services, you know.
Yeah. Alice.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
my goodness. That's incredible.
Yes.
Alice, Wonder Services. All right. Now, I guess the question is, do you have little mushrooms, like tchotchkes and knickknacks that you give away to people?
So we actually are, if anyone's going to Foundry next week, we actually have some stuff that we'll be giving out that is it's a quote. I'm not going to give it, I'm not going to like spill the beans, but it's a quote that's pretty funny and it comes from Alice in Wonderland. So, but yeah, we're going to play on that whole Alice in Wonderland theme for our branding and hopefully give out more tchotchkes along the way.
I think you should, and I'm a little jealous now that I'm not going to be there, so I can get tchotchkes. And this approach that you have, it's worked in the past, and it continues to work. How many transformations have you been involved in throughout your, not just as Chief Wonder Officer, but also as in your career in the past for the last 2-3 years in procurement?
Okay, so I'm trying to think. So I've done like 12-ish as Wonder Services, maybe even more than that. Well, no, it's been just 12 Coupa. Anyway, it's been a lot. I don't even know, like 30 to 40, maybe even more.
Wow.
And we built, so I'm ProSci certified as a change manager, right? So I got that certification. Love the ADCAR model, if anyone knows of ProSci, but they, I think it's ProSci. But so I took that training and I was like, I started to apply it, and some of it worked really well. And it helped me with the foundational of understanding of the human dynamics within digital transformation. And then I basically reflected on everything that I did over my time in doing these digital transformations and started to pull together all of the lessons learned. Because to be honest with you, I had a lot of really hard lessons along the way and a lot of successes. And I learned from other change management professionals along the way. And I just pulled in the best of the best to create Alice and to create our strategy and work plan as we go along in these digital transformations.
Wow.
Yeah.
30, like I'm utterly baffled.
So my husband, so my husband's like, I don't know what your problem is, but it's like you see a problem and you fly to it like a moth with a lamp, right? I'm like attracted to the big complex problems and projects. I love working through them and seeing success at the end of the day.
I am utterly baffled. Like I would run away from that as fast as humanly possible. And 12 Coupa, like just as Wonder Services, just 12 Coupa transformations. I think that's pretty interesting. Like you mentioned, there are 400 procure tech, companies and technologies, and you've done a bunch of Coupa implementations. What are what are the things that people are looking for right now? Like, in your
Ooh.
opinion, what's the hot procure tech that people are like, oh, I have to have that now?
Okay, so there's two things that immediately come to mind. There are a lot of solutions out there that are trying to solve for supplier onboarding and management of that supplier. So and they're doing it in a really unique way. Like Graphite Connect comes up to the top of my head right now around someone who's doing it really well. They're allowing for a supplier to fill out most of their information once, right? So they upload it once, it's all in their portal. So it's a one-to-many relationship when it comes to how the supplier is functioning. So as I'm onboarding, let's just say AT&T, because everyone uses AT&T or something similar. So if I'm onboarding AT&T, that supplier's record is already there and available for me to quickly onboard. So I don't have to go back out to AT&T and say, I need all of this paperwork, I need bank verification, I need all this stuff, and start all over from scratch. So they're doing a fantastic job of changing the game in that space, which but there's all kinds of different tech that's popping up in that area to solve that problem. Okay, so that's area number one. Like, a lot of people focused on that, especially because of COVID and all the supply chain disruption. People are onboarding a lot of suppliers, and it can't take that long, because if it takes too long, the supply is going to be gone, right?
Yeah.
Like, you have to figure that out. And you have to assess and keep up to date on financial status of all these suppliers, et cetera. The other aspect that seems to be a hot topic is more of the seamless user experience. Particularly in the procure to pay space, you might have 5 to 10 different buying channels that you want people to go through, and expecting a person to know what those 5 to 10 buying channels are is a little bit complicated, right? And you can't guarantee that they're going to choose the right thing. So when I say that, like, think about somebody going into Coupa or Ariba or any of the other P2P tools, and instead of going to a catalog, they just create a free form for an item. When there's already a price for it, it's already been negotiated, et cetera. You don't want people doing that. So there are a couple of solutions out there that are super cool to help direct people in the right areas. Focal Point is one of them that I'm actually seeing them next week. Yay. Can't wait to meet with them again. And then you have Zip is out there. And then you also have something called WalkMe, which is an overlay. And WalkMe is super cool. It's like, you know how sometimes you go into websites and you're trying to do something right in the cell, and there's a little pop-up that comes up, like, to ask you a question or to direct you in the right way to use that field. That's WalkMe. So you can overlay that on top of Coupa to help direct your users to the right activity within the system. Super cool.
That is pretty cool.
Yeah. Yeah. I get really jazzed about this stuff. I love the innovation that's going on in the procure tech space, but those are the two main areas that I see a lot of activity right now.
I would agree. Supplier onboarding is definitely something that that has become more and more difficult as we live in this world where we have to constantly protect our own data, protect our customer data. Sometimes it takes a long time to get that through that whole third-party risk, financial risk management process. And having a centralized area that's already done all this stuff, and you just go, oh, I like that guy, and you can grab it. That's pretty awesome.
Yep.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
You've given me things to think about, that's for sure.
I hope that helps other people on the phone too.
Yeah, I hope so too.
Yeah.
I hope so too. So we've got like 5 minutes left, and I want to make sure that that you have an opportunity to tell all of our audience members here, just a little bit more about yourself. Right? We went straight to business. We went straight to Wonder Services, and that's okay. But I know you've done a lot of podcasts. I know you've done a lot of really great storytelling. Are there like key things that you want to hit on that maybe I haven't asked you about yet?
Oh, geez. Let me think about this. I don't know. I don't know. I mean, you were really great at asking questions. So I've covered a lot of ground, hopefully not too much ground for everyone on this conference today. But a couple of things about what I think about for procurement as we stand here today. Like procurement, the part of the reason why I started getting very active on LinkedIn, and if you guys aren't following me on LinkedIn, please do so after this. But part of the reason why I got on LinkedIn to begin with was because I went to a conference, and this was, gosh, it was probably in 2015, 16 timeframe. And they were talking about getting a seat at the table. And they were talking about my data is too bad and I can't do anything because my data is too bad. And I was sitting there reflecting to myself, I was like, this is the same line of questioning that we've been asking ourselves since I started in the industry. Then I think it was about 15 years, right? Or maybe even a little bit less. But I was like, why are we asking the same questions for, let's just say 12 years in the industry? And it might have been even before that. And we're still asking the same questions today. So my challenge to all of you, and the reason why I started getting really passionate about sharing knowledge and building that community on LinkedIn, is to inspire people to be curious about doing stuff differently. And part of that curiosity is to ask different questions. Because at the end of the day, if you're asking a question that still hasn't been answered in 20 years, we probably either A, like the answer and don't want to admit it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Or we're asking the wrong question.
Agreed.
So that's, to me, that's all about being curious, right? Thinking about, what if we did this? What if we approach this differently? What if we stop talking about getting a seat at the table and truly embedding ourselves into with our stakeholders to know their strategies, to build them up and help them be successful? To me, that's the best seat at the table. I don't need to necessarily get a seat at the table with the CEO. I want to make sure that my stakeholders are highly effective in what they do, and they will bring me to the table, right?
Excellent.
Because I'm adding
Excellent
such
point.
value.
Excellent point. Value creation is super important, and
Yeah.
that's what gets us early engagement as procurement folks. That's right.
And so anyway, I'd love for you guys to all be inspired to think about that tonight. Think about your digital transformations. Would love to talk to you after this if you have any further questions, but also think about the state of procurement. I think this right now is the best time to be in procurement. We were all put in procurement at this time for a reason, and it's to make procurement something even better, and maybe even something that we haven't even thought of yet. And like, I always ask people, if you were to tear down all of your preconceived notions of what procurement is and what it's not, and rebuild procurement from scratch, what would it look like?
Wow.
Now's the opportunity.
It definitely would not look like what I'm working with right now. Yeah, that's for sure.
Yeah, right. And now is the time to do it. We've been asked to do supplier diversity, ESG, all of these new things, secure supply, all of these new things are coming on us. Now is the time to reimagine what that looks like.
This is true. This is true. Thank you so much, Amanda. I have one last question. This is a personal question. I do follow you on LinkedIn. This is personal for me. I do follow you on LinkedIn, and not too long ago, you put up this beautiful picture of a beach that you were working from. One, where was it? And two, how was the Wi-Fi? Because I am thinking about a digital nomad lifestyle, and I need someplace with free water to work from for a little while.
Okay, so it was Curacao in the Dutch Antilles. So if you know of Aruba, it's right, or Aruba, it's right next door. Aruba is right next door to Curacao. It's lovely place, and the Wi-Fi was amazing. I worked from the beach probably 3 times out of every week, so I absolutely loved it.
Thank you so much. That was the most important question that I asked today. That was good for me. Thank you so much. I put Amanda's LinkedIn the link to her LinkedIn in the chat. Please go and follow her. She puts some awesome content up, including great pictures. She's a great person to connect with. She's always smiling, always bubbly. Thank you so much for talking with us today, and I look forward to speaking with you again. Good luck at Procurement Foundry and all that good
Thank you.
stuff, and we'll speak to you soon. Thank you so much, everybody,
Okay.
for joining,
Thanks, David.
and I'll see you next month.